Hey, everyone.
Hello.
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 Hi, Kathy.
It looks like we're ready to begin. I know Megan may not make the meeting last minute, and Kat is about to come on to the call. So why don't we call the meeting to order at 5:32. And do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the November 12th, 2020 FHS Building Committee Communications Subcommittee?
This is Ellen. Motion.
And anyone second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Wendy. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed, abstentions? All right, so that we're going to move forward. So we're going to start with website updates. And I know we've been working on this for a while. So who would like to begin the conversation about website updates? I don't know, Devin, do you want to start?
Yep. I'm just promoting Ira over here because we had a meeting about it yesterday as well. He was in there as an attendee.
Yeah, I was looking for him. I was surprised he wasn't here.
And I think Kara was planning on joining us as well, but we can go over what we've got so far.
While you're pulling that up, I think we can just simply state that we've had a couple of good meetings over the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks. We've been meeting weekly to review website update. Iris brought some great insight to the process, and we've really talked through quite a bit of things, and so it's been great so far. So we're excited to kind of share with you. Really, Ira, Kara and Devin have taken on the bulk of this, but yeah, it's been great.
Do you want me to go through it, Devin?
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay. I sent the document around. I don't know if everyone got it here. Hi, Ira Yellen again, here to advise in terms of putting together a community engagement plan. Part of the thing, again, just as a refresh, that what we're working on, the goal here is this outreach, hopefully within the year here, that there will be a referendum date and so forth. So this everything we're doing is timed to hopefully get it sooner than later, your referendum date. And so we've broken in right now to 2 areas that have to be done between now and January to kind of revamp going forward. My understanding is pause, the thing they call pause might be ending in January. So this plan is based upon the town council going forward sooner than later with a referendum date. And so we're going to do several things. One, in January, I think maybe I start with the whole overview of communication here, and then get into the, because I talked to Megan this morning. I didn't realize she's not going to be on, about integrating my discussion here between what the strategy is for communication and kind of going forward here. So if you don't mind, then I'll bring in the website stuff. Does that make sense to you all? Okay. So there's 2 things we're planning on working on this month. One is a distribution to every household with a survey instrument that I can share with you a little later if you'd like. Kind of getting an understand where the community is, what they understand, what's been going on. It's been a while. So it's what we call a baseline to work from for the communication, so that people in your community at least start with some point. So this newsletter will give kind of a highlight, a little Q&A. Here's where we are. We're not going to focus so much on the past here. It's kind of saying just currently where we are in terms of what the architects come back with, what the building committee is working on, the statement of needs, things that are very specific for the project itself, calendars, committee buildings. So we're reintroducing everything like it's almost pivoting and restarting. Because to ask people to remember, my suggestion would be that most of the community, this is out of sight, out of mind. It's not even they're thinking about it. So we got to have to re-engage them. The second part is a website, and we reviewed it with working with a Devin on this, and I don't see not Richard, Kara and Mark on this. And the website we felt to be updated to identify what materials are usable still, what should be archived, review other platforms, and the one that's been said we're going to stick with this one. And how, when they go in there, make it very easy for them to find information and follow the process in a sense, like follow the bouncy ball, that the website is kind of like your newspaper. Since newspapers and the media is very intermittent, covering town news, events, what it is, the website becomes your kind of digital newspaper. And so this is all part of phase 1. Phase 2 is more community outreach, and phase 3 is prior to when the referendum is going to go out. There'll be 2 more additional newsletters. And so what we're doing with the task here is that we have a piece of software. I think we demonstrated that before, using a slide deck and a Prezi video. And I'm going to go down here and share that with you, which basically, this is just a model one we did in Mansfield, which kind of is like follow the yellow brick road. Here's where we are, what we're doing. Here's the building committee, what they're doing. Here's the design concepts, what we're doing on the site, and, features, budgets and other consideration, and then milestones and dates. And this is a very interactive tool. It works very well. So when people get in, they can drill down as much as they want or get a kind of a headline. I recommended, this worked very well for us in Mansfield, where you have very just simple buckets. So when you open the homepage, they can select on the buckets and kind of broke them into 5 areas. I'll stay on this one for a section. That there's the, sorry, up here, typo. It's education facility requirements. It's basically your statement of needs. So that's not changing from when I've talked to Kathy, and that's staying much what it is. So they're going to see that because that's part of the legal process. This is the physical things. I'm sure most of you have seen that. That's this document.
Sorry to interrupt, Ira. I think, can you try sharing your screen again?
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, this is what happens sometimes. It goes out of sharing. I don't know why it does that. When you change a document, it's really fussy about PDFs. I don't know why. Can you see it now?
Yep.
Okay, so this is the current statement of needs, external requirements, challenges and needs. So this will always be downloadable. And when you go back to the, sorry, let me just get rid of this. So we go back to this document here. I'm going to leave this back here. This will incorporate this in here. And also we're going to talk a little bit about accreditation, accessibility, a little bit more in the programming. I want to address, most people don't understand about accreditation, and I've done many of these. And basically your accreditation is your motivating factor for evaluating the whole high school physical plant and how well, or the challenges of teaching and doing educating of students in the 21st century. So an independent group comes in. I assume all of you kind of heard all this. It's really important to educate the community to understand that there's evaluations to go on. I know you're not going to lose your accreditation, but their job is to come in and saying, either you got to fix the place up, you got to do certain things, or you got to build a new building. And they'll come in and do warnings. Mostly, I rarely have seen where they completely discredit. I've been in 2 districts in the state where they almost did that, and it was a motivating factor. So that's a really important part. The project overview, that goes into, I show you that Prezi thing. And so these are the 6 bullets here. It's kind of a timeline. And again, I took some liberty here. If there's agreement for the referendum to be late spring or so forth, we create a timeline. You have the building committee, reports and process, design goals, ed specs, reimbursements, milestones, important dates. So this document is a working document that it can change. Did you have a problem? Did you lose it again? So my internet was not stable. Hello, can you hear that?
Yep, we hear you.
We're
Okay.
still good.
Okay. Yeah, I just got an alert here that the internet, I don't know why, I have high speed in here. So this is important. These 2 are the most important in terms of engagement and education. And the way we look about doing this is that educating your community, it doesn't mean they're not aware. It's understanding why are we doing this? Why is there a high school needed? Why is a new high school? And why are we doing it now? if that's what's going to happen. And that's what has to be answered. And the only way that the community can understand it and make a decision is having the facts easy at hand. The other three components, and which are, what's the building committee? What is their role? What's the mission? You know, how they work with the Board of Ed and the town council and other groups. This is pretty much where the architects work in, design concepts and features, where we're going to show the best we can, the schematics, what we see it to be. We'll make it graphically interesting. So there'll be before and after, which you saw as part of this document. And of course, then there's a Q&A, which then will go to the building committee site, which is obviously this here. They're going to click on this. So the questions deal very specific, very general, the costs. And we decided to stick in here that we somehow cannot ignore COVID-19. How does that affect this project? And safety and security. So these are the 5 major buckets. So it makes it very easy for people from our experience to go through and see what this is. So in a sense, what will happen, the homepage will be redesigned to have these buckets with some graphic, interesting viewpoint. Devin, did we cover everything here? And Mark, did I miss anything?
I think that was the bulk of it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. We did talk about creating a statement, which I think you're going to get into later. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to talk about, again, why now, why are we doing it? What does it mean? That's a building committee statement. That it's nowhere. Didn't see it anywhere on the website or any information. So again, this provides all the tools and tactics with a series of newsletters going out, page handouts, and of course, whatever links that we have to do internally and externally to make this all happen. There's one more thing. I'm going to go through this. This is kind of a broad outline of what a survey would look like.
Does anyone?
Hello? Can you see this?
Yep.
Okay. I just want to make sure we haven't lost anything. I don't know why. It's getting a little quirky over here. So we're saying to the people why I think it's important to get out a baseline of understanding is where people are right now. It's not selling it. It's not pushing it. It's understanding what they understand, what they need to understand, and how they want to get it, how they're currently getting it, and how they want to receive information. Because you can't ask people to vote if they don't have information. And so the website provides kind of the broad outline. This newsletter going out provides kind of a baseline to work with. So from my experience, you get back 5 to 10% feedback, which demographically represents. I'll walk through this. Again, the questions will be changed and modified. I want to, obviously, building committee and you folks can look at this. We're talking about what their current understanding. Are you aware of the building committee work? Understanding the current educational facilities, which is a statement of needs, understanding long-term future goals, identifying next steps for implementing the vision and goals for the high school, putting on pause and hold, not aware of any of these. And so this gives us what they're understanding, how these questions or these statements, these can be modified because this is not in concrete, but it gives you kind of a flavor. Are you aware of the high school plans to build a new building? Yes, no, aware or not. You'd be surprised how many people say no or not aware. In fact, I'm even guessing the majority responding back probably will say they're not aware. Are you aware of the current status? And we're saying see the website or the newsletter will have information in there. How important for you to know what the current status is? So we're asking very important information because this creates how we're going to communicate everything going forward in terms of getting information out. And these two are the most important, 5 and 6 here. How are you getting information regarding the project? If they can answer that, if it applies. And so we have a list traditionally of where they get information. And you can take a guess which is the number 1 here. Word of mouth. Always looks like number 1. That's the last thing you want. You don't want word of mouth, town criers going around. What we want is direct information coming from the committee, the town, the Board of Ed, and all 3 together. And then what happens when they answer it, believe it or not, it reverses itself. They don't want to hear word of mouth to get their information. They're going to want to get it from some legitimate source, be it town meeting or website, the Board of Ed. And so we're asking the community, how do you want to get stuff about the project? And so we have to not assume which one it is going to be. I think it's going to be a combination. I think social media is going to tick up a little bit more. We're noticing that in other surveys. And I have not finished the rest of this yet. What are your priorities for the facility? Addressing learning needs, providing high quality experience, flexible adaptive spaces on here, providing safe and secure, cost and tax implications. And what makes this statistically valid are the demographic questions. How long you lived in town? Do you own or rent? What's your current status? Do you have kids in school? Are they in a private school? And other comments. So this adds statistically, and we can match that up with the census so that we can determine the low error margins on this. It's really important to ask these questions. So this is what I recommend kind of going out of the gate. This again, this creates that baseline. And of course, we can modify some of this around. And so when it comes back, we look at it, we analyze it, and then if we get this out by early February, we get back, analyze it, and then we do another newsletter, or we present this to the people and saying, okay, here's what you've told us, here's what you're getting, here's the information, and so we can get it out on a timely basis. You might want to set up, like I've done in the past, a series of town meetings to various groups. Some want to see in person if COVID allows us to do that. My sense is we're going to be doing a lot of these kind of Zoom meetings. It's probably going to be going on at least till late spring. And then, what we're doing here is this is something, David, thank you for doing this. Why we need to do a high school, a statement of needs. And so we're just fiddling around some of the language that's going to be on the website on here. And so I know I'm going through this pretty quick. I don't expect you to read it. I just wanted to show you what we're working on right now. This is all stuff to be reviewed and edited and cleaned up. So I just want to show some progress in terms of how we see all this integrating. So if there's any questions or you want me to go back to anything, I'm more to do that. I didn't put up your current site, the building, because I think that your current the building committee site, I think that's all going to change in terms of doing. We're going to probably use some of the information, I think, in terms of Kathy, the Board of Ed, the town, other things that are still viable and usable information. There's a lot of dated information in there, which is freedom of information, just should be archived. It doesn't apply anymore. And the only thing I always emphasize, we just got to kind of put out of our focus here what happened 2, 3 years, 4 or 5 years. This is all progress starting now going forward and getting one up to snuff. It's almost like starting new. So the basis of doing this communication outreach is at that point. And then hopefully people will get more engaged as we provide them more information on a regular basis.
Thanks, Ira. I think it sounds like a huge undertaking, but really it's not. It looks like there's a lot of the information that's already there. We've done a lot of pulling of that information, or I should say Devin and Kara and Ira have done a lot of pulling of that information and just sort of reorganizing it a little bit, changing what's out in front first thing, so that as we appeal to everybody, those who need a quick glance are going to have that first. And those who want to dig deeper are going to have that opportunity to dig deeper. And then everything, like Ira said, everything that's sort of happened and in the past, we can archive that in a spot on the website for people to just keep digging if they want.
Thank you, Mark. We break it down. If any of you have ever done Myers-Briggs, you break into 4 quadrants, how humans function in terms of information. Some cannot drill down enough. They're going to want to dig a hole deeper to find there's some nugget they missed. And so we're going to have enough of that on there. There's people who just want to scan information. They're very visually oriented. Some are like the combination of visual and copy. And then there's other in between where they want to move around at their own speed. And I guarantee if each one of you probably are one of those quadrants. It's nothing wrong with it. It's just the way you have human beings kind of tackle information and how they look at things. And being in this business for 40 years, the psychology and kind of sociology, how people gather and use information is always amazing. And many times it's just unconscious. But we want to be conscious here, obviously, and very transparent. And if you see we're missing anything in here, I think the next round is going to be, if we all agree to do this as your communication committee, is somehow discuss it and bring this to some fruition, so we don't sit and waste time and money. And because this is all based upon a calendar.
Hi, Ira, this is Ellen. I was wondering, so where we're at in the process now, just in your professional opinion, is it important to try to gauge support for the project in the survey, or is there a way to do that, or for what you have? I don't, if it's already in there, or the data that you have has the metrics for doing that, or if we have to dig a little deeper, or is that something at this point that might be important?
My thought on this is you don't want to ask people's opinion about the project. You want them to get information. Then they can give their opinion. It's been too long, too distant, removed. The worst thing is to ask the public, should we go with this project or not? There'll be a point where, there's going to be various groups, and down the road, if there's a PAC group, that's going to be their job, the advocacy side of this thing. If we want to know right now, I almost guarantee you people say, either they need more information, don't care, or they're not going to support it. That's my hunch. So why ask the question when we already know the answer is not going to be very beneficial moving the project forward? It's not that you don't want their opinion, but you want to ask them at the right time. It's a timing issue. The question we tend to do at the end, right before they post for the referendum, do you plan to vote or not? That's all we really care. We don't want to ask them, are you going to vote yes or no? Those are political things. We make this as apolitical as possible. The minute you ask them yes or no, you're into a political environment. Are you for my candidate or against my candidate? What we want to know, are you going to go out and vote for this? To me, it's my experience is that if we get 30 to 35% turnout, you tend to win these referendums. Anything below in your community, I think below 25-20, you tend to lose them.
Well, I like your answer. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
I don't know if that's helpful. I understand the impulse to get a read from the community. Are you going to help us or not, or support it or not? I think it's just premature. That's all.
Thanks.
This is Wendy. I actually had a quick question about the survey. And before I do that, I think everything looks really great, well organized, and I'm actually excited to see all of this roll out. But I just noticed something on the survey. It said that you were going to distribute it through mail.
Yes.
So wondering what was kind of the logic behind that, or should we be considering pushing it out through an email?
No, emails can be limited. Error margins are very high. You want to reach every household for two reasons. One, you want to bring everyone up to date. Even if they don't fill out the survey, you're now providing them information that's already going to be in this newsletter. A Q&A, that's the update, everything like that. So it's everyone, you're creating what we call a baseline of communication. So that's what you want to do. And again, it's your newspaper going out directly to every household to do it. So you can't say we're skewing it. Right now, phone calling, and there's been a real question about phone call surveying, even if you try to break the demographics down. So let's say you get a certain cohort of a percentage of people of a certain age or sex. Many people aren't answering the phone, so you might get an answer for someone that really doesn't represent that cohort. These things do, because if I repeated, let's say I'm estimating you're going to get between 500 and 700 surveys back. So the error margin is usually way under 4%. If I sent out everyone in the household answered that, it would pretty much be statistically within a small error margin. So that means you could use this statistically for planning how you want to present and what you want to show and your needs. And so therefore, there's two things you want. One is that people can't say, I didn't know anything about it. I didn't get information, which is usually what I hear the most. And the second thing is I have enough information to make an informed decision. The goal of any communication that I do are those two things. I got enough to make so I understand. And number two, I'm going to go vote one way or the other. And hopefully they vote positive because we make the case that why it's needed. Through all the various groups and interests and, the unity of all the people on it. In other words,
So I'm also, oh, sorry.
go ahead. No, sorry. Go ahead.
I was
Wendy.
just wondering too, if you're mailing it out to the households, I'm just thinking, so it would be like one per household that would go out, or would it be, because a household could have like 2 or 3 voters.
Each one could do. We recommend they make copies. What it is, it's I can show you what it is. It's a one-pager that's perforated that detaches, that has already prepaid stamp on it, and all they have to do is put a Scotch tape at the bottom. It's a heavier paper, and then everyone that comes back on that is, it's paid whatever the postage plus the handling that comes back at each survey. It then goes through a machine. We do this all the time. That adds up because this will be formatted to be aggregated. And then we take all the comments. We're going to probably get a lot of comments here. We aggregate those and put them into categories. And at that point, you'll get a report about what the results were from all this, and with all the demographic breakdown, the census reports. So you'll have a complete picture of your community statistically, demographically, and the interests they have. That means we'll be able to go forward of answering questions when you do public presentations or Zoom meetings. And many times you discover things that weren't thought about to present. So this might be a big help. I think we lost some people here. Oh, there you are, Wendy. You moved on me.
Oh, no, I'm here. Thank you for explaining that.
I was looking for you, and all of a sudden you moved to the right side. And I know, Richard, you want to say some things on the document went out, the before and after. I thought that's a great job you did on that. Visuals are huge, huge helps on this. And definitely that would be part of the website and also part of the Prezi presentation.
Okay, that's great. So I did get comments back from Sharon, and I will try to incorporate what she suggested. She suggested fewer words, bullet points would be good.
Okay.
And so I'm going to try a version of that. And she also suggested some additional photographs in the existing auditorium, as well as an alternative photograph or supplemental photographs for the science classroom lab, particularly about the counter height. So,
I know, Richard, you and I talked about making kind of a tour, one of those 3-dimensional tours. Are you still looking at entertain all that?
yeah, well, let me finish my thought about the side-by-side. So what I'm going to do is another draft of the side-by-side and circulate it with this committee. But I just asked Devin before the meeting started if I can have access to whatever photographs Scott may have. And I don't know if Scott is attending this meeting this evening. I don't see him. But I need to reach out to his collection of photographs in order to be able to make some changes in the side-by-sides. So I'm going to do another version of that and get back to this committee.
And the other thing I suggest, Kathy, is that maybe put some of the educational things that'll be going on that aren't in the school right now as part that we get. So we have a draft, for example, that I don't want to do the hallways, but like in the classrooms here. I mean, visually, just the more interesting, but by having something like this, which is it's explaining in here what it is, but what is the educational change or value? Is that something you think we can include that comes to part of the statement of needs?
Well, I think there is in there, but you have to read it. So I think the suggestion for bullet points is a good one because you can easily make that stuff jump out. So for instance, this text, if you read it, offers individual and small group configurations, greater flexibility in scheduling of classrooms. But you need to find that text in this form, in this narrative form. So I think bullet points make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I just asking Kathy that whatever you do in the bullets, I didn't finish my thought, that if you see to add or subtract from this, Kathy, that's all. I think the bullets are a great idea, Richard.
Okay, good. So I'll continue revising that. But regarding your question on the three-dimensional
Tour.
right, a virtual tour, I've been playing with that. There are a number of software devices that we can use. A lot of it is used in the real estate industry right now. So I want to give it a shot, but I'm not ready yet. So whether we do it using software that creates 3D interior spaces, I'm going to back up because I have to share with the committee where we are in the whole process. I would love to do a tour of the interior of the proposed building in great detail. However, that's not where we are in the design process. We're in the schematic design. We finished the schematic design, which is enough to get cost estimates. It's enough to make plan presentations to various bodies in town to illustrate the configuration on the site, etc. We haven't made decisions about the color of interiors, the types of finishes on the interiors. We've had such conversations with the cost estimator, so he has some understanding that we are including porcelain tile, for example, a budget line item for porcelain tile, for example, in the public spaces. But the whole process of interior design is lengthy, and I don't want this to be too cartoony. I've seen a lot of 3D visualizations, and they end up looking very, very cartoony. And I'm reluctant to do that. So I would like to experiment with the possibility of doing a combination of cutaways of the building so that you can peer into the building and then click to a similar space in another facility where they can see an example of a classroom, an example of a music room, etc. And that would be done using this tool that we're talking about, Matterport, for example, which is used by realtors to provide virtual tours of properties that they're trying to sell or lease. And that they actually take photographs within those buildings in order to allow people to manipulate the image, look up, look down, look around, pan around the room. That can only be done if you have an actual building built. So I'm working on it. It's a
Well, do you think, excuse me, Richard, do you think minimum we can have a site map that has a plan that can click and at least a photograph would pop up?
Yes, that's easier to do. Yes.
I think minimally, it'd be great to do that, 3D tour. But we talked about how difficult it is when you're proposing something that might change because these are schematics.
Right.
What you want to do is create an image that shows, wow, look at that new one, which might incorporate all this, but might not be that same, configuration necessarily.
Right.
But if they can visualize saying, oh, that looks new, boy, that looks old. It's like I'm getting rid of my used car, 400,000 miles on it, and boy, that's the new car. And that's how people look at things when they're visualizing things. So I think minimally, if you can have that kind of floor plan and take these major spaces and then at least click, and that worked fine on Prezi, and it worked fine on putting it on the website.
Okay. Then, so I can certainly mock that up, and then it would have to be ported over to Squarespace, I believe is what your current website is using. And I don't know whether it is achievable in Squarespace. We can only try and find out.
Yeah,
So
we can do that. I work with Devin. There's software that easily they can do that, or fall into and using in Square. There's add-ons, and plugins you could use.
all right, perfect. Okay.
Kathy, would that make sense on that? Minimally, knowing that might be hard to do a 3D tour, given that we don't have all the information. at least minimally, they can click on, here's the layout and here's what we think this space will look like.
Yeah, that would be helpful. I feel like we went through most of the agenda items already. So we've gone through the website updates. Ira went through some of his work, Tall Timbers marketing, and some of the work that he has really focused upon from our last meeting. The video tours we just touched upon. I do know that we're going to be, Scott is putting together a list for Ira of some individuals that may be able to, do like 1-minute videos, really to talk about the needs of the high school. We did talk about the side-by-side photos, and thank you, Sharon, for providing that feedback. Is there anything else that you want to go over, Ira, or anyone else, before we go to other updates?
Before we completely move on from the website real quick, I did just want to show some of the progress that Cara and I made based on our discussion with Ira.
Great.
So I will pull that up.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Devin.
All right. Can everyone see this all right? Okay, so right now this is the current landing page. It hasn't changed yet, but, and Cara, feel free to jump in as well, but we're working on remodeling that landing page to cater to Ira's feedback here. So like you said, we have those 5 buckets here. And these are just placeholder thumbnails for now. And obviously we still have to build out some of these pages, but we have the statement of needs, design concepts and features, which will include what Richard is working on. The project overview will be that Prezi presentation that Ira was talking about. Building committee will have just information about the committee and meeting information. FAQ is just the same questions that we've had. And then underneath, we want to include a mission statement, which we will be discussing in a little bit, and possibly some videos underneath, which right now, obviously there's nothing there, but so we're still working on this. And the idea is that it's very simple for people. These are the big picture items. When they click into statement of needs, it's still very similar to what we have on the site right now, but that is what we've made so far.
I would say just on the educational programming, we have a new vision of the graduate. It's called Vision of the Global Citizen with a new logo. So I will send that your way, Devin.
That'd be great.
The other thing, when I was talking to Megan, the 3 videos I'm looking should be either the board chair or the superintendent, Megan, chair of that, and the chair of the town council. Because then they see unity, and they can say all 3 different things that relate to, based upon why we're doing this. And they would come from, the town would be this a community big project. The building is used by the community. It's always overlooked that half the time the high school is for teaching. Many other times it's for community use. And we should emphasize some of that. We did that on Avon, and it was a big difference. We listed all the clubs that used it, and they never realized how many people are using the building. It's probably the most used building in the community, other than, in fact, no other. There is no, it's the biggest building owned by a town. There's plays that go on, there's sports teams, there's all kinds of clubs. So Kathy, if you or anyone has that list, we should incorporate it into this. It is a very important part because those groups will be supportive. If they see the facility, it can be better for them to use. So it's just something to think to include. That, in fact, what we did in Willimantic, where their building is new, is that the biggest purpose of it is selling it as a community building that happens to have a high school in it. They wanted to reverse it versus a high school that has a community use. It was a really interesting approach, but it worked very well in that community. Every community is always a little different. So do you guys concur with having the 3 major leaders behind this project, a short 1-minute video?
Absolutely. It shows unison. Yep. Unity. Yep.
I mean, I'm thinking more the elected officials are appointed versus the people who are, nothing against you, Kathy. I'm sure you can do a fine 1-minute video. But I think that showing the community, these are the people we elected to run the town, hearing from them. And, you know, because they know you're going to support it anyway. And we could have statements from you about what this means for your career being in there, how this is be a valuable learning experience, valuable learning place. I mean, there's going to be room for professional people in here, you know, teachers, you know, whatever, who want to say anything about this, leave it kind of open.
This is Wendy. I was just going to quickly piggyback on something that you said, Ira, about promoting it as a building that's for the community. But I remember in some conversations, because I joined on to the committee later, but someone did emphasize that the auditorium was going to be available and used as a community. And I knew I do have kids coming through, but I knew that was something that I was like, wow, that's exciting. And
We lost you, Wendy.
Wendy, we lost your volume.
Kathy, do you charge any community groups for using the high school currently?
Yes, for custodial only, I think.
Because some districts now are charging rental fees. Have you ever thought about that?
Yes, there might be it's very small, but it's really the larger cost is having a custodian there.
Yeah.
And we just need to cover those costs. But
I mean,
yeah, I mean, that would be something, especially if it were, you know, a situation where more outside groups would be utilizing it and competing for that, the use of that space. It's just that our auditorium is not sought after from community groups because of the condition.
yeah, no, it's when some group, I can't remember the district where they estimated the cost of heat and electricity, wear and tear on top of custodial cost.
Yeah, I think we have both, but I'd have to look to see what, you know, the fee is, but I think
Well,
we do have
yeah,
both.
it's something that you're saying to the community, okay, we have community groups, but hey, you know, they're going to pay their fair share using the building. So there's some revenue generation. I know it's not a ton of money, but at least conveys that, hey, the building's open to people who are legitimate and, you know, and stuff like that. I don't know if this is a senior citizen center there. Do they charge outside groups to use their building too?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I do know that. I mean, we have a very large continuing education program that primarily uses the high school. And, you know, so I could see just highlighting the number of classes that are
Right.
held each night and the type of classes, because most of it is enrichment for our community. And it's well attended, and it's something that the whole community really takes advantage of. And we have an excellent program where people from outside of Farmington come to the continuing education program, because we do regionalize it.
Do you have a census of how many people other than kids use
Yeah.
the building? So you can get those statistics?
I could get those easily.
That's great stuff to have,
Mhm.
you know, to do it. And also a list of the groups and the kinds of things they do in there. And that'll show to the community that this building, you know, you're using it too. You know,
Yeah.
you come to watch basketball games, you come to see your kids. This is truly a community building. Even though we're not marketing as a community building, we say part of it is that we don't shut it down at 4 o'clock.
Right.
After that, you know, it comes to life as a use for adults and other people in the community.
Mhm.
And many times people don't even realize that. They just, you know, they just see the building completely as a high school, which is of course what it is. But those spaces are so flexible. Richard, let me ask you, is in the plan, because I didn't go through it, where you see more community possibly using the building, using spaces in there in a way they couldn't do it right now?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So we have gym, we have auxiliary gym, we have the theater, obviously, we have music rooms. So you could use those as practice rooms for ensembles. We have the technology shops. Those could be used after hours as well. And then we have this atrium space, and those kinds of spaces are used. I've seen them used for things like yoga after hours, evenings, or even meals. So those kinds of things can be incorporated into community use.
Yeah, Ira, even Richard's got a good, the design scheme identifies almost like a separate entrance almost, right? So you're closing down the entrance for the school and the school piece of it, the classroom piece of it, partially, to open then up for evening programming, and the way that the building is positioned on the site so that there's limited light reflection to neighborhoods in the evening. And so it's, as you go through it, you'll learn that, the design is very thoughtful for community use moving forward.
Ira, we should have a discussion about the design, because I sense you're not familiar with it yet, but if we could spend some time going through it, then I think you would probably pick up on some things that you could highlight in your newsletter or on the website.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm familiar with the schematics and the descriptions, but I agree. Just some, drilling down here, like this building, what's the estimated shelf life of it, Richard? 30, 40 years?
Oh, it's a 50-year building. Yeah.
Okay. So this is something to consider when we're presenting it. If a bond goes out, was it a 20-year bond referendum for 20 years?
Yes.
Is that anyone up there would know? It's usually 20 years.
Yeah, that's typically how we do it for 20 years.
So it's a 20-year bond for a building you're going to use for 50 years. And the other thing then, once we decide the cost, what helped us a lot, some other ones, is that what's it going to cost a household with an average value of the house on a yearly basis? So the big numbers don't get scary. So when we just finished one in Mansfield, we estimated it was $124 for an average cost of a house per year. And then I put in, it's equivalent to going to McDonald's for 12 meals. And so then people get the grasp of actually what this thing, I mean, that kind of investment, I'm getting a building for $124 a year. And so it's digestible and usable. So sometimes, I know it sounds corny, but it always works. Because when you say the building's 120 million, those are abstract numbers to people. They have no idea what those numbers, we know it goes into a lot of stuff, but when it breaks down, what is this actually costing my household? And you say, well, that's a reasonable investment. It might be $100, might be 150. It's usually not as much as people think it is.
Ira, this is Beth. I just wanted to jump in here. I currently serve on the Board of Ed, and I've been involved with the building project since our first referendum on the PAC side. But what you just talked about, I think it's just good to at least clarify that has been a challenge. I think it's fair to say for the town, demonstrating the cost to, the average household, the average family, the average taxpayer. And there's been quite a lot of push and pull, with members of the Board of Ed, members of the council in the past, just about how we do that. What's the most accurate way to do that? What is the most fair way? Do we do worst case scenario versus something a little different? But I just wanted to put that out there now, because I think as we get into the nitty gritty of that, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, you always present the big numbers and then you make it digestible per household. That's the basic formula.
Well, that number you just gave is not anything near where we've ever put out to the public. It's always it's a lot higher. And,
yeah,
and I think there are reasons for that, but
reimbursement rate there's a lot different too. And so there's
yes.
I'm just saying, but it's, it's a wealthier town. The houses are worth more. I get it.
Right.
But you got a town there of well-educated, smart people understand investment. So you approach it as an investment over 50 years, not a bond over 20 years. The bonding is the physical cost. The building outlasts even the house you're living in.
There you go.
And so the other thing is, if you had to maintain the current high school over 50 years, what would it cost to maintain it? And what you're going to see is an outrageous cost. It's impossible to sustain that building on a basic like that. Again, it goes back to looking and saying, people don't realize maintaining a school building, no matter how big or small, is very expensive. And either it's come out operating, or if it's big enough, you got to bond it. So your taxes are going to go up one way or the other. And when you have a big
Right.
building like a high school, it's much more expensive to maintain. Kathy, how often do they, when assessments come in, is it over something that occurs or over something your plan that you know is going to be obsolete and you got to work with? There's absolutely no choice. Particularly with the building now. In other words, the roof's going to be done. Do you have a list of things if nothing happens for a new building, how much that's going to cost over 20 years?
Yes, because we did the cost of doing nothing. So we have that.
Yeah, I know you probably have all this. It's all important for us to look at it and use the information. We don't want to deceive the public, but we want to point out, are we penny wise, pound foolish? That's basically what I'm saying. And, you can't fight what the costs are. A brick costs what a brick costs. But in terms of the other things like that, is showing the investment, the length of this building. Richard, is that the average length of a building that's built today to the current standards? Is it designed to last 50 years, more or less?
It depends upon the building. So, if you're building a Costco, no. But if you're building a public facility like a high school, which is a public edifice that, it's paid for by tax dollars, yeah, it absolutely should last you 50 years. That doesn't mean every component lasts 50 years.
There's always going to be maintenance, I understand.
Yeah, there's always things that need to be replaced during that period, but the building is going to be there for 50 years. So what's the best evidence of that? The existing building has been there for 50 years. When the original high school was built, it was, they built it for a long time. And so that's what we're shooting for. We want to make sure that this is a substantial, well-built, durable building.
What would you say the percentage of cost is highly regulatory? In other words, you have to put it in because of state laws and regulations about building codes.
Oh,
I mean,
boy,
most of the building is that, isn't it? It's designed around highly regulated, schools and hospitals are highly, regulated buildings that go through all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So how much of it is discretionary versus absolutely mandatory? It's mostly mandatory. I mean, there's very little discretionary things. We're driven by state standards. If you want to get the reimbursement, they're all mandated. If you want to build according to building and fire safety codes, they're all mandated. We're not doing anything that's discretionary. I mean, we're very, very careful about doing that. So
I'm sorry. The only reason I bring it up, Richard, I know it's mostly mandatory, but that's part of an education to the public. You don't have a lot of flexibility when you build these buildings. You have a little here, a little there. But when doing it, yeah, there's upgrades and new things you can incorporate. But to meet the standards of education and safety and security, these mandatory things, that's what it costs. And they're just more expensive than building a Costco. You just made the case there. Someone says, well, it's like a Costco. I mean, I've heard these discussions from people. Yeah, look at Costco. They got a few things up here. They divide it up. And you'd be surprised how people think it's that simple to build a high school or any school building. And you always have to point out the obvious. Sometimes we just don't do it.
yeah, that's a good point.
I did notice that Rafina had her hand raised. She's an attendee. So I think before we move on to the next agenda item, I think it might be her comments or questions might be related to what we discussed already. So I think now would probably be a good time to let her.
Yeah.
Just promoting her.
Yeah, I'm sorry I've taken the platform here. I just wanted, this will be the only time I just kind of go on with this. And as my wife said, just something to bop me on the head. Thank you.
Oh, hi everyone, it's Rafina. No worries, Devin. Wendy asked my question about how we were going to require people to fill out the forms, and I deferred to, because my first thought would be to send an email survey to most of the parents, since all those email addresses are in the school system. But I get your point about making it as low tech as possible and not getting any errors on the return. I was curious though about one thing that Ira mentioned. I understand that the survey, the preliminary survey, is kind of educational and sort of as a re-engagement tool for the public. At what point then will there be a second survey to sort of assess where we are along the process? And then Ira, we don't know each other, but Marcus, who's also on this call, and I are co-presidents of the Political Action Committee, Comprehensive FHS, and we are going to be helping, once we get to referendum. So we can maybe talk offline about when it's appropriate for us to get involved in the process, and will there be another survey before that?
Okay. Do you want a discussion on it now, or you just want to do it offline?
No, no, we don't need to discuss it right now. I'm just curious about, you said that there was going to be this first survey. Then after this first survey, we get, the 5 and 10 or 10% of the response back, or respondents send the stuff back. Then what do we do with that data?
When we get the survey back, the second newsletter is going to give the results and say,
Okay.
Here's what you want. Here's how we're doing it. Here's the information. The third component, which I'm recommending for the phone survey, would be a month or 2 weeks prior to when the silent period comes, to get a pulse of how people, are they planning to vote or not? Did they get enough information? And that's going to help what you're going to do.
Okay,
In
and
other
that
words,
happens.
That's going to be, well, whenever they decide, I don't know, is it 30, 60 days out? I don't know. I don't remember what
30,
to count.
usually.
30 days out. So the minute they decide, here's the date, we have to backdate 30 days. And prior to that, the last newsletter is going to go out 2 weeks prior to that, the referendum, the posting. And that's the point where you really outline in all detail exactly what they're voting for and why it's
Okay.
important to do it. That's the last time you can take an advocacy role. After
Right.
that, whatever groups or PAC groups go out, they take this information and they go out to do it. So I think the steps are here. You have a survey to see about the engagement. You want to get them engaged. The second one talks about the findings and what's currently going on and all more details. And then the third survey is outlining, here's what you're going to be voting for. And more specifics. And then at that point, prior to the election, whatever group decides, whatever PAC group's out there, they just run with advocacy. And then the schools, the school can talk about, and the Board of Ed can talk about this during that quiet period. They just can't promote it. They can't use, I'm done at that. My job is done prior when the posting occurs. I'm put back in the shed for another day.
Okay. So then you mentioned about phone banking, that happens before the third survey?
Excuse me?
You said people will be calling. So is your
No, that was a public policy. Whoever's we can do that, but if they have another group that can make phone calls and, just get a random sampling, it might be a little higher error margin, but at least give us sampling based upon everything we sent out for 3 months, how much that is stuck to people. Okay. And that determines then the advocacy you take on when the posting of the referendum is. So those 30 days are really important. Most people make their decisions on this because we've done post-survey work. Most people make the decision 4 to 5 days prior to the posting, prior to the election. The voting.
Really that late?
Yep. I'm sorry, the deciding votes. And the deciding votes are women. They're the ones that make the decision closer to the voting, and it's them who get the husbands out. I'm being pretty open here about it, particularly on the elementary level. I wasn't going to go too much. The elementary parents determine the success of these elections, these referendums.
Okay.
Okay, well, so we're going to move on to any other updates. I don't know, Kat, do you have anything else that you wanted to share?
No, I think we've covered,
okay.
We've covered quite a bit.
Yes. And then discuss upcoming meeting schedule. Anything there?
I think for the upcoming meeting schedule, we see well, so we have the next meeting scheduled, which is for the Thursday. It's that morning because we're flip-flopping now. So I believe it's scheduled for the 14th at that January 14th at 9:15. I think we at that time should approve a kind of a meeting schedule moving forward, because the intent is that we are off pause at that point and we're kind of running with Ira's communication plan. So I think we are probably going to have to meet a little bit more frequently.
All right, thank you. So if there's nothing else, motion to adjourn at 6:31.
Motion, Ellen.
So be it.
I'll second it, Sharon.
Okay. And I'll probably talk to some of you individually. Richard, we should get pretty much on Mark on the more details that should be included in. And Kathy, take a look what you think should be included in the newsletter. I mean, I'll send the document around again, any feedback right now, but more important is getting approval. Do we move forward with this launching all in January?
Mhm.
Thank you.
With the email that Meg sent out. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, all in favor?
Bye.
All right, thank you all so much. This was a lot of information. We really appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Sharon, I love your tree.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a nice holiday, everyone.
Yeah, you-
Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Happy holidays.